My husband made me give birth silently in the bathtub because he followed his family's religious traditions.
Honey, don't make a sound. This is how my mother and grandmother gave birth. And all the children were healthy.
At first, home birth scared me because it was my first pregnancy.
Contractions every 10 minutes. I think you'll be done before the midwife comes.
But unfortunately, Charlie was wrong. I sat in the bathroom for 3 hours, and every time I made the smallest sound, he squeezed my shoulders and asked me to push in silence.
Now, quieter. Quieter.
For some reason, the baby was in no hurry to be born. And that fact really annoyed my husband.
You're probably pushing it wrong. Try harder.
But I couldn't push anymore. Then I asked him to find out where our midwife was. Charlie called her and said that she was late.
It's all in our hands. Come on, honey. You can do it.
But the pain only intensified. When Charlie went to the restroom, I took our painkillers, which I prepared in case of emergency. But as it turned out, he had thrown all my pills away.
You're so naive. You thought I wouldn't find your stash. I told you, no medicine in my house.
It got worse by the minute, and I started worrying about the condition of the baby. So I decided to call an ambulance immediately. But my husband got ahead of me and drowned my cell phone in the bathtub.
I'm sorry, honey, but it concerns only the two of us. No strangers.
It seemed that Charlie lied about inviting a midwife.
I didn't want to share this moment with anyone except you.
He once again told me how important family traditions were to him. I understood him. So I asked him to find a way to speed up the process. Charlie took out an old notebook from the closet. There were his grandmother's notes, home birth tips. For several minutes, my husband thoughtfully read the notes. After that, he grabbed a bottle of ketchup and abruptly smashed it on the floor. I got scared and asked him why he did it.
Here is a rag. Wash the floor.
Apparently, cleaning was one of the ancient methods to induce labor.
Do you want the baby to finally be born? Be more active.
I cleaned up the ketchup mess and needed to take a break, but Charlie didn't let me.
Hey, there's a living room, bedroom, and hallway. You can't stop until I see my baby.
An hour later, the whole apartment was sparkling clean. I was completely exhausted and still pregnant. I really wished to alleviate my condition with a cry, or at least a groan. But my husband began controlling my every sound even more. He was angry because it wasn't going according to the notes from the notebook. And when I heard the following, I didn't even believe it at first.
Pack your hospital bag. We're leaving.
I was glad that he would take me to the hospital as promised. However, when we got out of the elevator, Charlie blocked the exit.
You go the other way.
He said that there was an alternative to induce labor, climbing up the stairs. My husband made me go to the 25th floor of our skyscraper and told me to carry a bag to enhance the effect.
When we reach the last floor, you will definitely give birth. I'm sure.
My delivery was far from the fairy tales that Charlie promised me. And to save myself and the baby, I had to act. I simulated strong contractions and asked my husband to return to the apartment. While he was drawing a bath, I tried to turn on my phone, but it showed no signs of life. I couldn't run away either. He locked the door. So I quickly wrote a plea for help on a piece of paper, made a paper plane, and launched it through the window, hoping that someone would find it and save me. When the bath was ready, Charlie ordered me to get in. He said that I only had 1 hour and set a timer.
Otherwise, there are many other methods in Grandma's note. And believe me, until this moment, I spared you.
He closed the bathroom door and left me alone before ordering a pizza. Time passed, but I still couldn't give birth. A couple of minutes before the deadline, Charlie came back. To my salvation, there was a knock on the door. I sincerely hoped that someone had found my plane and was there to rescue me. Yet, it was just the pizza delivery guy.
Extra pepperoni for Mr. Abrams?
I tried to draw the courier's attention to help me, but when my husband handed him a generous tip, he didn't even look in my direction and quickly retreated.
Whoa! Thank you and bon appetit, Mr. Abrams.
My last hope was gone. I silently watched my husband tear off a slice of pizza and mentally prepared for new tortures. As soon as Charlie took a bite, he started choking and blushed a lot, grabbed his throat, and fell to the floor. I didn't understand what was happening. At that moment, someone knocked on the door again. It was the same courier.
Mrs. Abrams, open up. We need to leave immediately.
But I didn't make it to the entrance. The tension made me dizzy, and I passed out. When I woke up, I was already in the hospital. The doctor said that he had to do a C-section.
You're lucky. If you had gotten here a little later, the consequences would have been unpredictable. Be thankful to this young man.
It seemed that the courier found my plane. He understood that he couldn't deal with Charlie alone and came up with a plan. He added red pepper to the pizza and waited for the reaction. Everything worked out almost the way he had planned.
I didn't expect you to pass out, so I had to break down the door to take you to the hospital.
That's how, thanks to an unknown delivery guy, I got a daughter. I named her Hope. The hope I'll never lose. Unlike my crazy husband, who was forbidden by the court from approaching me and my child.
I made my husband be present during childbirth.
Can I leave? I'm really not ready for this.
No, you'll stay. You should know how hard it is to deliver a baby. But soon, I regretted being so persistent. As I went into labor, Roger quickly turned pale and lost his consciousness. Then everything was like a blur, and I only breathed a sigh of relief when I came to my senses. Everything was fine with Roger and the baby. However, before letting my husband into my room, the doctor scolded me as if I was a child.
What were you thinking when you brought such an impressionable man to the delivery room?
I wanted to show him what women go through to make him more caring. When we got home, my husband was a completely different person. For the first time in his life, he ran out of the car to open the door for me. Plus, when I entered the house, I was so surprised that I almost dropped the baby. Everything was squeaky clean. Roger also became the perfect father. When the baby cried at night, he would jump out to rock him so I could rest. But all those wonderful changes did not make me happy. After all, my husband stopped flirting with me altogether. He hardly ever touched me, and even stopped kissing me before leaving for work. After 1 month of such life, I couldn't stand it anymore. I asked my mother to babysit our son so I could prepare a romantic evening for my husband. Roger was scared to death of such prospect. He was on pins and needles. Then he said that he had to go to work. Seriously? You just got back?
Yes, but I got a side job. There are 3 of us now, which means we need more money.
I wasn't going to miss the opportunity to be with Roger, so I decided to wait for him. But when he saw in the middle of the night that I was still up, he started acting like a hunted animal. Before joining me, he closed the curtains and turned off the light. But that didn't help either. Honey, are you okay? You look sluggish today. My husband was furious and finally decided to tell the truth. He blamed me for everything.
I'm sorry, but every time I look at you, I see what happened during the childbirth. I can't help myself.
Roger went to sleep in another room. And I spent the whole night on the internet, looking for a solution to the problem I foolishly created. I found a great specialist for my husband, and he immediately agreed to go to therapy. As time went on, the number of sessions increased, but there were no results. Roger hadn't touched me in 6 months. And when I saw him with his psychologist, I started to understand why there was no progress. After all, that specialist looked much more attractive in real life than in the picture on the internet. So I booked a session with her to find out exactly how she was trying to help my husband. However, the psychologist hasted to reassure me.
Trust me, your husband still loves you, just as before. And I'm not your competition. I play for another team.
She admitted that Roger's case was quite complicated. Many couples face a similar problem, and being my birthing partner only exacerbated it.
You became a mother. And in the male subconscious, the mother is sacred. But what he saw during the birth defiled that image. Your husband needs to see the woman he fell in love with again.
I was desperate because I couldn't even imagine that by making my husband witness childbirth, I would destroy our marriage. So I decided to take a bold step. I suggested to Roger that we should live separately for a while and that he could date other women.
But Mary, I love you. I don't need anyone else.
I had to take my courage in both hands to stick to my decision. I think it will be useful for both of us. Roger left the house almost crying. A few days later, I called him and arranged to meet him at our favorite bar, the one where we once saw each other for the first time. My husband didn't even recognize me right away because I looked exactly the same as the day we met. When he came up to me, I pretended not to know him. Roger immediately understood the rules of the game and started courting me all over again.
Let's do this. If I win, you will go on a date with me.
I agreed, as I did 10 years prior. And I could easily win because I had been playing since childhood. But that day, I deliberately lost. Much like this time. We had a great evening and Roger walked me home. He asked to come in, but I refused. I am not one of those girls who invites a man home on their first date. Yet, just as before, I couldn't resist his charm. We went up to the bedroom. I was very worried that it wouldn't work this time either. I rushed to turn off the light, but Roger stopped me.
Don't. I want to see my wife.
True love will stand any test, but don't test it yourself.